Welcome back to another episode of Offbeat Adventures. We're standing here once again on the grade of the former Grand Trunk Pacific Railway and later Canadian National Railways Graham Subdivision. We're in the middle of nowhere. We are west of Graham, Ontario, and just west of the station at Oscar. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be picking up where we left off on a previous hike. We actually just left off just right up there. You can see there's an old road that kind of goes off to the north. So we're going to be working our way from this point about 8 miles or so, about 13 kilometers. I measured it because I had to drive in with the truck, and when I passed this point to where we stopped was 13 kilometers. Showing up a little bit more on the bike and my watch because we kind of walked around a little bit, but it's showing 15 kilometers. So according to the truck, it's supposed to be 13. So in our journey today, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be passing a station. We're going to be passing Petry Station. We have one river crossing, and we have a number of logging spurs to talk about, and that's actually the reason why I started back here as opposed to right there where we ended, because we're actually right in the middle of somewhere in here a logging spur, and what I'll do is when I get just up ahead, I'll talk about it. So again, this is where we parked on the previous hike. So we did that hike a couple of weeks ago. So today is it's a Saturday, it's the 18th of October. We were here on the 4th of October. Yeah, that would make sense. Trying to do the math in my head here. Yeah, that works out right. A little bit of a different contrast between the days. The leaves were just starting to turn at the time. You can see a telegraph pole here. And it was ridiculously hot. I think when we finished the hike, it was in the neighborhood of like 30 degrees Celsius. It was just stupid warm. Today is a little bit different. It was when I left the house this morning. It is quite a drive to get here because it's about 2 hours to get to Graham, and then it was about 45 minutes to come up the grade in the dark. And you know, you can't really see much as you're going forward, and so it hasn't really warmed up much above that. It's cloudy, which is great. It misted at times this morning, so I'm hoping that stops and we don't have any more of that, because that is going to cause us trouble. The sun kind of comes and goes. It'll kind of just very, very quickly peek out and then disappear, and it'll kind of look like it'll lighten up, and then it clouds over again. So it just might be the nature of the day today. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening here. Let's get our notes out. I did a hike a couple weeks ago. I forgot the damn notes. Okay, so we are located at I don't know, the mileage is all kind of screwy. So 110.6. So from 1918 to 1919, it could have been longer. The problem is I have the October 1918 timetable. I have the January 1919, but after January, there's an October 1919. After from October 1919 until 1922, there's no spurs that show up on the timetable. I'm not sure why. So there was a spur that was known as McConnell's. And it was a 4-car spur connected at the east end, so it could be anywhere in this sort of stretch here, from right back there where we started the hike up to just up ahead over there. Again, I don't know exactly where it would have been located. You know, again, we're talking about well over 100 years ago, so we're talking about, you know, like 107 years ago. So again, sometimes it's difficult to precisely pin down where it is. So what I'll do is I'll show you the timetable. Okay, let's get rolling here. Let's hope the mist stays away. Might have to stop periodically and check the lens of the camera. It's clouding up again. Before it was lighter before. So here we're getting into a little cut. There's some rock work in here. Here's where the spur kind of is, you know, obviously it's not in the cut here, so it had to be back there. So let's do our history lesson. So this line was constructed by Grand Trunk Pacific Railway between 1905 and 1908. It was going to be an attempt by the Grand Trunk Company to construct a second transcontinental railway across Canada. The Grand Trunk Company was one of the oldest railway companies in Canada, dating back to the 1850s. Now, based on the experience of the Canadian Pacific Railway, Grand Trunk wasn't overly keen on sort of building and financing this railway line by themselves. Obviously, the Canadian Pacific went through a lot of difficulty and a lot of expense trying to build their railway line. So essentially, the Grand Trunk Company was looking for some sort of partnership with the Canadian government. Here you can see just a little bit of rock work that's in this cut. Not particularly big, not particularly high. So because of that, there was a lot of extended negotiations between Grand Trunk and the Canadian government over this issue. It kind of went back and forth for a lot of years. So it took them a while. You see a little bit more rock work here. It took them a while to finally come up with an agreement. And so essentially, the terms of the agreement was that Grand Trunk was going to build the western portion of the Transcontinental Railway, everything from Winnipeg west to the coast at the Pacific coast at Prince Rupert, under the name Grand Trunk Pacific. And the Canadian government would build the eastern portion, everything from Winnipeg east to New Brunswick, under the name National Transcontinental. And once the line was complete, Grand Trunk would operate both railway lines. Now, unfortunately, the wheels fell off, pardon the pun there, the wheels fell off right away because once the line got completed, there was problems that propped up immediately. I'm going to stop and I'm going to give the lens a wipe. I'm getting dots on my cycling glasses. I hope this is not the precursor to problems here, because I'm going to be rather upset, because it's not easy to get here. There's a lot of energy and there's a lot of time and there's a lot of expense trying to get into this section, and this misting stuff is very, very problematic. You know, it seems like it just cannot be cloudy. It was cloudy on Wednesday and then it rained on Thursday. It was actually the first kind of quite a bit of rain that we got in a while. So anyway, the problem started right away, because once the line was completed, and this was actually one of the first sections to be constructed, it was actually a branch line. So because the line ran so far to the north, it was basically going to give the system access to Lake Superior. And so once the line was completed, what ended up happening was Grand Trunk basically backed out of their agreement to operate the eastern portion. And so now the Canadian government had a problem, because you essentially had the eastern portion of this transcontinental line with nobody to operate it. So what they ended up doing was they ended up creating their own company to run the line, and that became known as the Canadian Government Railways. Sorry, I'm going to stop again and give the lens a wipe. This is going to be extremely frustrating if this is going to be the situation. So again, the name of the company was the Canadian Government Railways. Now this line was a Grand Trunk Pacific line. It was actually an anomaly. It connected to the NTR, but it was a Grand Trunk Pacific line. So what ended up happening was the Canadian Government Railways leased this line from Grand Trunk Pacific, and because of that, the name changed. So it originally had been the Lake Superior branch, or the Lake Superior division of Grand Trunk Pacific, and it became known as the Fort William and Raith subdivisions of Canadian Government Railways. So it continued operating as part of the Canadian Government Railways for a number of years until 1918, when the Canadian government, you can see we're passing through another cut here, very sandy. You can see all the jack pines that are growing, a little bit of rocks here. I don't know if that's just till that's mixed in with the soil here. And so in late 1918, the Canadian government amalgamated Canadian Government Railways with Canadian Northern Railway to form Canadian National Railways. And so in January of 1919, when that took effect, the name of this line changed. It became the Fort William and Raith Subdivisions of Canadian National Railways. And then later that year, in October, the name changed again. It became the Lake Superior Subdivision of Canadian National. Now, while this was all kind of happening, what ended up going on was Canadian National started looking at their railway lines in the area. And so one of the issues that Canadian National had was going west out of what is now Thunder Bay, at the time Fort William and Port Arthur. They essentially had two duplicated lines. They had this line, and then they had the former Canadian Northern line, which had become the Kashabawi subdivision. So they basically decided that it was pointless to have two lines essentially running the same route. So their solution was to essentially double the Kashabawi subdivision for about 35 miles out of Thunder Bay to a place called Conmee Junction. And what would happen there is the line would split. They built a bridge across what was known as the Matawan River, and that bridge would allow the Kashabawi subdivision to connect into this line. And so this is where the line, which had become the Graham subdivision in 1922, would hook in. And so they made preparations to abandon the 28 to 30 miles of this line east of that bridge, heading back towards Thunder Bay. So in preparation for that, in 1924, the line was split into two, the Crest and the Graham subdivision. And then in 1925, it was split into three, the Crest, the Raith, and the Quorn subdivisions. And in early 1925, and it eventually took effect later that year around this time, the Crest subdivision was abandoned. And so the line operated as the Raith and the Quorn too many name changes, the Raith and the Quorn subdivisions, until 1931, when it reverted back to being called the Graham subdivision. And then the line continued operating until 1991, when it was abandoned by CN. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold up here for a second, and then we're going to make our way across the one and only river crossing that we have here on this section.